Mom won't accept my husband. At what point do we cut the relationship off? Got married earlier this year. My mom was a mess throughout the whole process. Thought maybe now that the wedding was done things would be better? No. And now I'm worried they will never be better. Okay, this is a really long story. Met my 26F husband, 26M, when I was 23, we got engaged plus married when I was 25. I was pretty certain this was the man I was going to marry from 6 months in. The relationship was very intentional from there on out. My dad and siblings got along well with my husband. He got along with my friends, I got along with his. We both are established in our careers. On the same page with values, life goals, faith, etc. Essentially, we knew what we were doing when we made the decision to get married. Relevant for later. My mom has strongly disliked him from the beginning. 3 months in she sat me down and said, I don't think he's the one for you. Her specific reason in this case was due to his T1 diabetes. I told her I'd take her advice into consideration, but ultimately who I date is my decision. Relevant info, she has done this with every single guy I've ever dated. They have some critical flaw which makes them not the one, until after we've broken up and I'm dating someone else and all of a sudden it's, why don't you get back with so and so? I loved him. Ask any one of my exes, she made it very clear she did not love them. So, while I did seriously consider the things she said, as she's my mother and I want to respect plus honor her, I ultimately did not see her reasons as good enough to end the relationship. Fast forward 2 years. 5 months before we get engaged I learn we are getting engaged because he didn't know my ring size. So that gave me 5 serious months to really think about my answer before he actually proposed. The weekend of the proposal, a mess lol. My husband texts my father asking if they can meet to discuss a topic other than me. My dad texts me and asks, is this really about non-relevant topic or is he going to ask me what I think he's going to ask me? Night of the meeting, my mom finds out my dad is going to meet with my now husband. She freaks out and demands my dad turn around and go home. My dad called me that night to ask, are you sure this conversation is about getting engaged, because if not I don't want to fight with your mom over this. If it is I'll make it happen. And he did. So my husband asked my dad for his blessing and he explicitly gave it, relevant later. We got engaged the following Sunday. My dad asked that I take my mom out to dinner alone to break the news to her. So I did. She was not happy. She said she was blindsided, didn't know I was even thinking about getting married, despite me talking pretty openly about it for 2 years, etc. But then, she started saying the most uncharitable things possible about my husband. She said he was a creep, controlling, doesn't have a real job, is angry, no social skills, and I'm going to end up being his nurse someday and we'll never have kids. I would like to stress that none of these things line up with the actual character of my husband. I've dated controlling guys before, my husband is absolutely not one. Also he's literally an engineer who makes more dollar than me, we are both engineers. I knew what I was taking on with the T1D. Even if he was perfectly healthy there's the risk of serious illness in the future. I married him because I love him and want to be there for him regardless of the circumstance. For whatever reason my mom's claim set off a defensiveness in me, though. She's been highly critical of me and my personality. I'm a little more introverted, had hobbies she thought were weird as a younger child, and struggled with making friends as a kid because of shyness. Some part of my brain still thinks that whatever she says about me must be the reality, even though as an adult I've come to see that isn't true. It still sets me off when she starts attacking me or the people I care about and I start to doubt myself. The whole engagement period went on like this. The accusations and slander of my husband to her friends got worse and worse. She never said anything to his face though. He was also extremely kind to her, even though he knew what was being said behind his back. We got into counseling with our pastor, both for general premarital stuff and also for help in dealing with my mom. That helped a lot. My pastor suggested a meeting with himself, my parents' pastor, my parents, and my husband and I. My mom didn't want to do this. Why? Because she didn't want my husband to be there. She considered this a case of a rebellious prodigal daughter and that we needed to go as a family to counseling without my husband there, because if my husband was there she couldn't speak openly. Counseling as a family never ended up happening because I wasn't doing that. She wanted a chance to make accusations about someone who wasn't there to defend himself and to tear me down without someone there to stand up to her. She also created a narrative in her head that they just wanted me to slow down and not rush into a marriage with someone I didn't really know, and that I was disrespecting my parents who could see red flags that I couldn't see, but I don't care because I don't honor my father or mother. Notice the, my parents part. Yeah, so my dad wouldn't stand up for my husband and I. Why? Because my mom threatened to divorce him. She thinks that my dad giving my husband his blessing was an act of disrespect against her, and that if my dad would dare do that, she can't be married to him anymore. The same woman using the Bible to say I need to do absolutely everything she says, my dad's opinion was irrelevant, was trying to justify divorcing my dad on unbiblical grounds. So my dad told my mom that he said, I told him they were adults and didn't need my blessing. Which yes. He did tell my husband that. Followed by, but you have it anyway. My mom's story, my husband tricked my dad into meeting him and then backed him into a corner and threw the "Can I have your blessing to marry your daughter?" on my unsuspecting dad, and my dad is too scared of people and couldn't tell him no. I've grown up hearing her talk pretty awfully about my dad. She makes fun of his hobbies, his personality, etc. And my dad's not perfect. He has been kind of deceitful towards her to avoid her getting upset with him. There is no infidelity or anything like that. My dad hardly leaves the house. I've talked to my dad privately about this. Asked him to stand up to her. He says he feels he's in a situation where he has to choose between his wife and his daughter, and so he said we should know he supports us, but he wouldn't jeopardize his marriage over it. Fine. Here's the part where I may have made a mistake. We decided to have a short engagement. I didn't want to deal months and months of my mom trying to end my relationship. I'd already been planning and saving for the wedding for 5 months, and I wanted a springtime wedding. I was sure in my decision to marry my husband when I said yes to the proposal. So we picked a date 6 months out. Pastor was okay with it, told my family, mom was ignoring me, and sent out save the dates as soon as possible. A whole month after the date was sent out, my mom decides she would consider the possibility of marriage if we picked a date 5 to 6 months later than the one we had picked, so we could get in serious Christian counseling. We were in counseling with our ordained LCMS pastor, but that wasn't serious to her. This devastated me at the time. I knew this was manipulative. That's why she only offered this after we had sent out an official date. But at the same time there was hope of having my mom's support. And there was doubt, maybe she's being reasonable. Maybe our date is too early. Maybe she does just want the best for me. Ultimately, after I cried and prayed a lot, we kept our original date. Which is what all her criticism has moved on to now. I was being reasonable, I just didn't want you to rush into a marriage. You couldn't listen to me and just wait 5 more months. She ended up helping us out with some wedding things, which was nice. There were lots of ups and downs of maybe this is okay, just to come crashing down a few days later. But ultimately the wedding day came and went. Found out later she blames me for making her help because she was guilt-tripped. I asked my family for nothing. I had saved enough to pay for the wedding on my own. The guilt trip she experienced ending up coming from her own circle of friends, who I don't even know. I have hung out with my family a handful of times since we got back from our honeymoon. Things seemed fine. I thought maybe it was going to be okay now. Until she got me alone this weekend. And all the bitterness came back out. For like 3 hours since I was stuck with her while my car was in the shop. 3 hours of, God isn't going to bless your marriage because you did it against your parents' will. Your pastor is not a Christian and is a joke because he doesn't respect the authority of parents. He knew we had my dad's blessing, but of course I can't tell her that because my dad's lie will definitely end their marriage. He took the situation extremely seriously, by the way. He thought the fact that one parent objected so strongly was an issue and wanted to be sure she was being unreasonable before he was willing to officiate. The same general slander against my husband's character, even though it's becoming more and more obvious that she has nothing of substance to point to. Slandering me, you have a weak personality, you were desperate, you've always been a little off and clingy, you only care about getting your own way, you just had to be married, you're rebellious, your church is a cult. No, not my church specifically, the entire LCMS, your workplace is a cult, your friends are a cult, i.e. everything that I have in my life that isn't her is a cult. Aha. You probably won't ever have kids, because of husband's T1D, which I don't think is true. But infertility has been a weird fear of mine since I was like 12, so it sucks hearing that over and over again. You're a fake Christian because you don't honor your mother and father. Your husband isn't a Christian. She doesn't consider my husband a part of her family and doesn't want him to be. She keeps saying, I hope this comes back to get your pastor. I hope his daughter runs off with a creep against his will someday. Hopefully it's pretty clear that her issue here is not actually with my husband. It's an issue she has with me. I'd been living on my own for about 3 years, not including college, so away from them for 7 years. But she always hoped I'd end up moving home. She saw the fact that I didn't live at home as spitting in my parents' face because clearly I despised them and wanted nothing to do with them. Even though I go and stay with them for every birthday, holiday, and lots of random weekends. To her, every decision I've ever made that she disagrees with is because I was directly rebelling against her. My sister, 24F, has no driver's license and still lives at home. She tried to move out but couldn't stand up to the attacks of, you hate your parents, you are dishonoring us, God won't bless you if you go against us and move out, you won't be able to manage living on your own, etc. Notice my mom always says us, but my dad is pretty conflict avoidant and just goes along with what she says. He usually doesn't agree, and has helped us out behind her back often. Dishonest. Yes. But I have a really hard time being mad at my dad because of it. So, anyway, with my marriage, any hope of me moving back home, being back under her control, and us, my 2 sisters and my parents, being a big happy family again like we used to be. That's genuinely why I think she lashed out so badly. Starting with my husband and now lashing out at my friends, my workplace, my church, and my pastor. But, I'm married now. And my husband doesn't deserve to be forced to put up with this just because she's my family, right? But I don't know how to explain this to her because in her mind she is firmly still the victim. My husband deserves at minimum an apology from her. But how do you even approach that when she can't see that she's done anything wrong? I don't think she's ever admitted that she's done anything wrong against either me or my sisters in our entire lives. And she's not all bad. And I love her. And I hate the thought of cutting her out of my life. But as we go down the road, this could be so much worse. When there are grandkids in the mix, who knows what the dynamic will be. And if we do cut her off, I already know she's going to spread it around town that, my poor daughter won't talk to her family anymore because her controlling husband won't let her. I don't want my husband to have to spend holidays with someone who hates him. He'll do it for me though. He's very good at the do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone thing, and his behavior towards her has been above reproach. But it's not fair to him to spend his life with a horrible mother-in-law who is just hoping for the chance to call him abusive or whatever else to vindicate herself. Also, how can I expect him to be okay with his future children having a close relationship with someone who despises him? It's only been a few months. Maybe more time will fix it? We're planning to have another discussion with our pastor about this. Anyway, this is a desperate rant to get some other opinions on how we can approach fixing the situation, and if not, how we can cut the situation off without it resulting in a rumor of my husband abusing me and forcing me to cut off my parents. Comment. I believe you are far past the point of fixing anything, as there's absolutely nothing to fix. Your mom is controlling beyond belief. The fact she's willing to divorce your dad over him giving his blessing says enough. My husband's mother is similar, slanders us both at every opportunity, claims she'll be removing him from her will, making up false stories, the list goes on. Eventually my husband was sick of it, and made the choice on his own to go NC, or VVLC when relevant or necessary. Just because she's your mother doesn't mean you owe her anything. My husband also says he only loves her because she's his mom, but it doesn't go beyond that. You don't owe her your peace, and you certainly don't owe your husband's to her. I'm an only child and have always told my parents if you ever spoke of my husband the way his mom speaks of me, I would walk away and never talk to you again. I say walk away. At least for now. Seek counseling on your own, maybe entertain the idea of a non-religious therapist. You can get a lot of perspective from an outside source and it helps you learn how to set firm boundaries. I say this all as the person in the same situation as your husband's. My mill bashes me every opportunity she gets and we are zero contact with her. Our peace and our marriage is so much better for it. You are so far past the point where she should have been cut off that if you look behind, you can't even see it anymore. Normally, I would make a sounds like statement here, but I'm just going to say outright, your mother is a narcissist, and her behavior smells sociopathic. She is everything I hate about religion. Your father would be so much better off if this dreadful woman divorced him, but that's his problem. Your sister, on the other hand, is not beyond saving. She seriously needs therapy. With a real therapist, not a pastor. Perhaps you could help encourage her in that direction. If not, well, she is an adult, even if she is being held in an unnatural adolescence and is therefore responsible for her own life. I grew up Christian, Roman Catholic, and as such went to parochial school. If you want to get all scripture about it, which according to your posts you seem to be fervently Christian, your first duty is to your partner as soon as you marry, as I've been taught by my Jesuit school teachers. If you're not prioritizing your chosen family over your mom, your chosen family will suffer. It's up to you who you want to prioritize, but in this case, the parties are at complete odds, and as such you won't be able to have one happily with the other still in your life, and that's all due to your mom's selfish, controlling tendencies. If I was you, I'd kick her from my life in favor of the married partner. I'll just give you what my rabbi told me about my toxic mother: sometimes honoring your parents means staying away from them. Why? Because you are your parents' creation. To take care of yourself by staying away, avoiding arguing with them, and keeping mentally healthy, when they are clearly not, would therefore be honoring them.